Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. For today, we have a few different cards to talk about. There's just a ton of different things happening all over the market. We are due for a ban list any day here in the TCG, and we actually just saw the OCG one drop a couple of days ago. Hopefully our list is going to be a lot better than theirs was. We also got confirmation of the 2024 tins now, and it's looking like this year is going to be an insane one, reprinting way more than usual. I think the card set is like 400 different cards, so we're going to go over a bunch of the fluctuations we've seen over the last week or so as we all wait for the ban list to drop here and destroy our market as well. Let's get started. Kicking things off, we're looking at Summon Sorceress. So over in the OCG, this card was unbanned with an errata, and it seems that a lot of players are really excited to see her back in the game. Personally, I think that the card is a lot worse and almost unplayable, but maybe some people are thinking of some sort of combo that they can pull off with the card. So there's two things that are different with Summon Sorc now. One, it connects the two different effects. Before, it was that you could summon a monster from your hand to an opponent's zone, and then it was a completely separate effect where you can summon a monster from your deck with the same type as a card that this card points to. Now, however, the two effects are attached, so you have to summon one from your hand to your opponent's field in order to summon one from your deck of the same type. But the other thing is that you are also locked into just that type for the rest of the turn after this effect resolves, so it really restricts what you can do, unless you're running a deck that really all just uses the one type, and that includes your extra deck options as well. I see this as being a very difficult card to use effectively. However, that hasn't stopped the card from shooting up in price. There are two different versions. The original printing is the Jump Promo Ultra, which is around $15 to $16. The other is the super rare. I think it was a promo in a special edition. They used to be really cheap. They're around $4 to $5 each now. So I think with Summon Sorc, it's one of those banned cards that I would try to offload as soon as possible because of all the hype surrounding the card immediately before its unbanning. I don't really think that the card will see that much play with the errata. It might be good in something like Dragon Link, but I think it's just more hype for the card because of how good Summon Sorc used to be, and people are a bit nostalgic for it. Even if it is decent, Konami will usually reprint the card with the updated text pretty shortly after the unbanning, so that will naturally cool the price down as well. Up next, we have the Black Goat Laughs. This is a card that I think we talked about a week or two ago, and it seems that the card did see a pretty big price spike shortly after. This card is apparently a popular side deck option in the OCG. It's sort of like a trap prohibition for really specific cards, and depending on the deck, cutting off the strategy's access to a certain card can completely end their turn. It does have an activated effect where you call a certain monster's name and that monster cannot be summoned for the turn, but then it also has a graveyard effect where you can banish it, and neither player can activate that monster's effect on the field for the turn. Very similar things. This card is used to cut off 10 Pie Dragons over in the OCG, and because it has two different uses, it can be a solid card in grind games as well. Also, since it is a normal trap card, this can be searched with Triple Tactics Thrust. So before, I think that the card was only really seen as a tech card for Labyrinth. Players would use it to discard with Stove or Chandelier, and this gave you a way to get it into the graveyard so that you can banish it if you're going second and still have some sort of interruption. However, after the past few days, we've seen both versions spike in price. The QCRs had hit down to around $45 to $50, but they're now actually up between $65 and $70 each. The more notable increase percentage-wise though is with the secret rares. You guys can see the 1 month price graph here. The card was down at a low of $6 to $7 per copy, but the card is now rebounding back up to a solid $15 each. Honestly, I do think the card has a lot of potential going forward. As a trap card, it's a lot better than something like Prohibition because you can force your opponent to commit to something before you flip this on them. This card isn't going to be reprinted anytime soon. It is from the most recent core set, and most of the other meta staples that we see in the game right now should be reprinted in Rarity Collection 2 or the 2024 tins. This card will likely remain expensive for the foreseeable future. Of course, it will go slightly higher or lower depending on the competitive results that we see over the next several months. Up next, we have Vitos the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, another card from Phantom Nightmare. This is also something that we talked about not too long ago. However, I did see that Squiddy posted a video discussing how impactful the card could be moving forward, so that may have contributed to this card being bought out as well. Vitos is sort of an interesting hand trap. During the main phase of either player's turn, you can pop a field spell and then special summon this card to your opponent's side of the field. Then there's an optional effect to search for an Ashen to Trap card as well. Also, if this card goes from your opponent's field to the graveyard, it destroys all monsters on the field. So the idea with this card is that it can be sided against Tenpai Dragons and Gimmick Puppets. Those two archetypes have field spells that turn their monsters into mini towers, so this helps to get rid of the field spell so that you can interact with them as well. And it also can't be used as link material or anything like that since it will blow up the board. Now with this card, people are considering using it over Ghost Ogre because Tenpai Dragons might just activate the field spell for protection, but not use its effect in order to play around Ghost Ogre. And then even with something like Typhoon, you can't use it from hand if the field spell is your opponent's only spell or trap card. We did see both versions of Vitos Spike. This card was actually decently expensive even before we talked about it last time. The quarter century printing was at around $70, but they're up to around $110 on TCG Player right now. With the secret rare, those were $17 last time we talked about it. I did see them shoot up to at least $35 lowest for a little bit there, but they've since settled now between the $25 to $30 range. So personally, I'm still not 100% sold on this card. I would have rather invested in something like the Black Goat Lefts prior to this jump in price. It could be the fact that Ashen might be a better than expected deck here in the TCG as well. I don't think we should be getting our hopes up too high for a TCG exclusive archetype. This is something I would grab a playset of if you can for a reasonable price. Definitely wait for a couple of weeks for the price to continue cooling down before you buy into it. Alright, so this is really random, sort of a troll one. It's Mausoleum of the Emperor. This is a field spell that's used by a pretty troll deck here in the TCG. There's a couple of different stun decks running around in the game right now that players are trying to use as a counter to Snake Eye Fire King, and one of them is a Horus stun deck. It uses the Horus engine to get free bodies onto the board, and then uses them as tribute fodder for cards like Archlord Christia, Vanity's Ruler, Vanity's Fiend, and Light and Darkness Dragon. Mausoleum is an interesting card for the deck because it allows a player to pay 1000 life points in place of tributing a monster for a tribute summon. This means that even if you don't have access to the Horus engine, or you don't have a Horus card on the field, you can still pay 2000 life points to summon a 2 tribute floodgate to the board and try to stop your opponent from playing the game still. This card has a few different low rarity printings. The card should basically be a bulk find. However, the card has just one holo printing. It was a super rare in an OTS tournament pack from a couple of years ago, and as you guys can see from the graph here, it went from basically being a bulk super to now being worth about $3 each. There's not too much else to say about this card since it is being used in a pretty troll deck, but if you can dig this card up out of your bulk, it's not a bad choice to try and offload it while it's actually being used in something that's somewhat meta relevant. So this is a jump that I think we saw happen within the last day or two. It's EMP Meow Mine. I feel like this is one of the more low-key cards from Phantom Nightmare. It's actually a really solid option. It's a level 2 Cyberse monster, and if there's a link monster on the field or in either graveyard, this is a free special summon, so very easy to bring out. And then if a link 2 monster of yours is sent to the graveyard or banished face up, you banish this card from your graveyard and then bounce a card your opponent controls back to the hand. Now, in terms of the card actually being used, I think there was a random plant deck that used 3 copies of this in the main board really early on in the release of Phantom Nightmare, but aside from that, I don't think the card has seen any sort of meta success yet. However, the card is currently starting to trend upwards. This card was only at a couple of dollars a week or so ago, but it very quickly has shot up to $5 each. Even with the quarter century printing, they were down at around $30. They're now up to $40 to $50 on TCG Player, so both versions of the card are making notable price jumps. So honestly, I'm not too sure exactly why it is that Meow Mine is trending up now. I think maybe it could be used with Summon Sorc in a Cyberse deck, but I haven't seen too many lists in general that have decided to add Meow Mine in anywhere. If you guys do know of a specific list or reason for this card currently trending, make sure you let us all know down in the comment section. Alright, so this is one card I just want to mention quickly. It's Lyrilusk Assembled Nightingale. Kind of random, this is a generic rank 1 Xyz monster that can attack directly. You guys probably know this as something that rank 1 decks could use to make a monster that can attack directly, put down a magician on top of it, and then go into Zeus. Well, this card is now actually being looked at for its other effect, where you can detach a material from it, so that you take no battle damage for the turn, and your Lyrilusk monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Now, as a rank 1 monster, this is an option for the Snake Eye extra deck, very easy to summon off of Snake Eye Oak or Ash, to be used against the Tenpai Dragon deck. The Tenpai Dragons are a deck that will try to OTK you through the battle phase, which obviously can't be done if you can't take battle damage for the turn. Assembled Nightingale is easily accessible, as it was a rare in Legendary Duelist Synchro Storm, but it has just one holo printing from back in Maximum Crisis as a super rare, and that version is just slowly starting to trend upwards. The card is now between $1 and $2 per holo copy. Not too much to say about this one, but keep your eyes on this and have some in your trade binder because people will probably be looking for it, assuming that Snake Eyes will still be a meta-relevant deck after the upcoming ban list. And finally, the last card I want to touch on is SP Little Knight, a card that has been trending downwards over the last couple of weeks. Of course, we all know what this card is. It's an extra deck staple that I'm pretty sure is the most used extra deck monster in the game right now. I think every single extra deck, including decks that don't even go into their extra deck like Fluwanderies, run this card just in case because it's just that useful. For a while, this was the most expensive card we'd seen from a core set in quite a while, and it was at around $140 during YCS Las Vegas. However, the card has done nothing but go down in price since then. After sitting up there for a month or so, we've seen the card just crater in price over the last couple of weeks, and it now sits right at around the $100 mark. I have also seen a ton of players posting online looking to move their copies quickly. There are a ton of different factors for us to take into consideration here. The biggest thing is the 2024 tins, which we just got confirmation of, and it should be a no-brainer that SP will be a huge selling point of the set. But with those set to drop in September of this year, that's only a few months away. Depending on how much you play Yu-Gi-Oh actively, maybe you would rather sell the card now for $100 and buy it back down the road for 10, 15, 20. Maybe if you are on something like Flu, and you can just play other cards in your extra deck instead. At the same time, we also have a surprising lack of events over in Europe, so that's an entire region that might be looking to offload cards with no motivation to play for the next little while. There are a ton of other different things that are tanking as we look ahead to the tins, as well as reprints coming in Rarity Collection 2. We'll definitely take a look at some of the other notable price drops over the next couple of months as we get closer and closer to those product releases. Alright guys, that is all we have for today's episode. Definitely excited to see how the ban list is going to shake things up. I know the game's been a little bit stale, so hopefully we see some big changes. More changes than the OCG at least, because that ban list was really underwhelming. I actually have a regionals this upcoming Saturday. My friends and I were always joking because it seems like we get the list like the week before, but it's not effective until after the regionals, so we're stuck playing the old format for regionals. I don't really know how I feel about it. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch, please make sure you let me know by hitting that thumbs up button. Make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below and subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.